In this video, I will demonstrate the solution I've built for the project evaluation. I will start with an overview of the project that is hosted on GitHub. Godesk is the fictional name I chose for the API. The stack of the project is Ruby, Rails, and MySQL. Setup is as simple as running bin setup command as long as there is a MySQL database in place. There is a .env file that can be used to set environment variables. Tests can be run with RSpec. Models are already covered. Controllers and integration tests still needs to be covered. The application uses HTTP caching to give faster responses for unchanged resources. The API is ready for versioning with modularized controllers and routes. And deploy uses continuous integration and continuous deployment, meaning that every commit to master or to a pull request will trigger a test run on Travis CI. And if the tests pass, this new commit will be deployed to production on Heroku. To demonstrate the API, I will be using Postman. I will show how the API is secured with authentication and role-based authorization. Let's start by requesting a ticket endpoint without being authenticated. If we send this request, we get a 401 unauthorized response because we have not authenticated as any user. So let's do that. First, I will sign in as customer 0 with password 123456. Note that I have already seeded the database with sample data, so we can skip to demonstration. In a real-world scenario, these users would be created by administrator users on the platform. So let's sign in. I get back a JSON Web Token identifying this user. This JSON Web Token is used to authenticate all other requests on the platform. Let's get back to our tickets request. We have to set the JSON Web Token in the header, but instead of pasting it here, I will set it globally on my environment so it can be reused for all requests. Done. Let's request the tickets again. And here they are. Now I'll try to create a new ticket. It's this endpoint post tickets with the body of my ticket title. That's the only parameter that tickets request to be created. I send a request and get back a 201 created header. There is no body because the only thing that the API client will need is a successful callback. Now let's try to export a PDF report of all tickets closed last month. That is not an action that a regular customer can perform. So it shall give us a 403 response, meaning that the user is forbidden to do this action. So let's try and authenticate as an administrator so we can request this report. I'll replace the old JSON Web Token with this new one that identifies the administrator, so we can do all things that the administrator is allowed to. Let's get back to the report endpoint and request it again. And there it is. We get it as a PDF file. I will save it in my downloads folder, and I will open it here so we can check it out. The layout is still very simple because there was no design followed, but it identifies the month and year of this report, and it lists all tickets that were closed on this month. The admin user can also create other users as support agents on the API. Let's do that. This is the endpoint to create new users. I will create a new attendant with the username of John Doe, and his credentials will be automatically generated and sent to his email. Since we are just in development mode, the email will actually pop up in the browser and not be sent. Let's send a request and see what happens. There it is. This is the email that support agent will get in his inbox with his username, his password, and the administrator who invited him. I will copy his password so we can test him out a bit. Let's sign in as John Doe with the password provided. Send a request, and let's replace the JSON Web Token again so we can be John Doe now. That's it. Let's try to show a ticket you will see that this support agent has access to any ticket because his role allows him to, differently from the customer that has access only to his own tickets. So this is a ticket with information and the message is already sent. Each message is a topic in the conversation, and if the last message was sent by the author of the ticket, in this case customer 0, then the API will set author is waiting to true, meaning that the author is waiting for a response from a support agent. Let's give him a response on ticket 2 and see how this goes to false. I will send a ticket message to ticket number 2 saying you just have to, and give some instructions to the user. Let's send the request and we get back 201 created. If we go back to the ticket and request it again, now the author is not waiting anymore. The author got a response. And whenever the problems that the author was facing is solved, the support agent can close the ticket by calling this endpoint. I'll call the close endpoint, and you have to check that the ticket is not currently closed. As soon as I call this endpoint and request it again, now it's closed with a date. The interesting thing about Postman is that it also generates a nice documentation. I put an additional description for each endpoint of these, and if you reach this button here, View Docs, will be taken to the documentation page. It has documentation for all the requests with example requests, and some of them even have example responses. Let's say tickets. The tickets endpoint has some query options like search, sort, direction, page, and it's all documented here, as well as a sample response. So that's it for the demonstration of the API. I'll just have a quick look at the web app. So let's switch to it in the terminal. I'll finish Real Server, and I'll start the web app with npm start. It is loading the web application that uses React, and I will sign up for a new account. Well, that happens to be me. I will submit the form and get a welcome message back. If I try to submit this form signing up for a new account using the same username, it will say that the username has already been taken. That's it. And if I already have an account, I can sign in right here. So this is it for the demonstration. Thank you for your time.